We're moving on. Therapeutic Thursday, everybody. Okay. Have you, I know you guys have heard of this, ever heard of or been warned of the cardiac blues?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's
That
real.
Yeah, it is absolutely real. And they actually say that more males experience the blues, or they actually experience it a little bit worse than females. But it is a known fact that if you're going to have open heart surgery, whether it's for aortic issues or a bypass or something of that nature, you can have the cardiac blues. But actually, if you're going to have anesthesia in general, you can still develop some
Mhm.
blues, just a little bit
Oh, yeah.
different. So this is interesting because I found this article from Australia. So the Australian Center for Heart Health explains cardiac blues as being, let's say if you've had a heart attack, heart surgery, or another cardiac event, uh, any of these would come as a shock. They generally come as a shock. And around 75% of people experience the blues after having a heart event, or that would
Mhm.
include unexpected changes in your mood, in your emotions. People can experience sadness, sometimes it's tearfulness, anger, irritability, worry, anxiety, confusion, forgetfulness. Sometimes people can withdraw from their friends or their family, loss of interest in life. These are just some of the many symptoms. And many people actually worry all the time whether or not they're going to get back to normal. So the blues encompass, like if you're sitting there and you're watching a Lifetime commercial or Hallmark commercial, many people are known to just start crying for, they're not too
Mhm.
sure why. I mean, and it doesn't mean that you now have massive depression and you need medication. Having the blues, the cardiac blues is pretty normal. So most people that have cardiac blues, they're actually going to find that the depression or the symptoms of depression or the blues resolve fairly quickly. So let's take a look at what these blues might actually entail. To me, when I read it, it sounded almost like cardiac blues could be described similarly to that of grief. Like you're kind of in denial, you're in shock, you're
Mhm.
sad, you're negotiating. A lot of these things seem a little bit familiar, but shock. So you might find yourself being thinking that did this really happen? I can't even believe I had a heart attack or I had open heart surgery. Like this is not, how can this be me? That happens to old people who smoke and drink and are really overweight. So I think shock, as you'll see through a lot of these, again, it reminds me of the feelings you have when you're grieving. But I would say that we could all say, because we've had aortic dissections, that we felt shock, right? It's part of the
Pretty
cardiac
much.
blues. Yeah. You fall into denial. It's kind of becomes hard to accept that this has actually even happened to you. And now this can be people with aneurysms too. When you're told you have an aneurysm, you might actually go into the blues before you've even had surgery. That would make
Mhm.
sense, right? You're in shock that you found out you've been
Absolutely.
diagnosed. Exactly, right? The
Yes.
next one will be worry. I'm sure we've all worried that you might not get back to your other life. What is the 2.0 version or 3.0 version for some look like? Worry about the fact that you could die because you don't understand how your body operates. That could contribute to depression and cardiac blues, right? Guilt, might feel guilty that you are now a little bit more dependent on your caregiver. You might blame yourself in some way for what's happened to you. I think we've all probably felt these feelings. Another one could be anger. You feel a little angry or frustrated, irritated at the changes that have happened in your life.
Mhm.
hmm Sadness, you might feel low, miserable about your moods in general and how they're changing and the
Mhm.
fact that they're up and that they're down. And relief, you might
Right.
actually feel a sense of relief or thankfulness that your issue with your heart or your cardiovascular issue was actually diagnosed and treated. So it's a little strange how all these feelings kind of form in one, but they do tend to happen after you've had surgery. I think I felt all of these even after
Mhm.
gastrointestinal surgery. So I don't think it necessarily is just cardiac blues. For me, I
Mhm.
think it's more anesthesia blues, I think I'd like to call it. What are your guys' thoughts, Diane?
Okay, I have two things. First of all, for me, I experienced like the five stages of death, your anger, acceptance, denial, bargaining. I went through all that to begin with, laying there on the stretcher and stuff. Uh, Coming out, I had anger, and I'm gonna confess, and you all people that I would say know me the best on here, Karen, I'm a very active, and before all this happened, a very passionate, free-loving, active person. And I mean, I could put flooring down walls. I could lift up big rocks and stuff. And now I do. I'm 100% go through anger at time when I says I can't do this, or I have to stop. I have to regroup. And it comes and goes. The high and the low come and goes. And it's sometimes like, why do I get so frustrated and angry? It's this whole new life that I had. I'm under my second surgery with the new valve replacement. And now, things become harder to do, but I'm able to do it if I take the, to the extent, if I take the time. Like my garden, I have to depend it on somebody to pull weeds out or move the fountain out of the way. And I'm independent, hard-headed because I had to be growing up. My second question, this is a question to you, Karen. When you say that they find it harder on men, could it be possible that it's harder on men? Because as women, we have hormones and we naturally we go through them hormonal changes, and we're used to going in pain. And I'm not going to say in the basic term, we're so easier to adjust things and tolerate pain more than man, to where they find it harder to deal with. You understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Could it be possible that's why men say it's harder on them than women, possibly? Because we're so used and prone to so much adjustments with our body through menopause and through periods and stuff in general.
You know what? I just took a note of that because I'd like to make that be another article in the next week or so we can talk about it. That to me makes sense. I would think that, we're used to have a cold, got to still take care of the family and cook, got to still clean, got to still go to work, whether we're crampy as all hell because we've got our period, we deal with pain sometimes for multiple days, every single month. Every single month, we're dealing with this kind of pain, and it usually doesn't take us out. I remember my mother saying, "You're going to be dealing with this for a very long time. Go back. You're going back to school. Like life goes on. You have to learn to manage and deal with it." And I think for a lot of men, sometimes not being able to do something and having to be in recovery mode is such a shock to their system, physically and emotionally, because now they're beholden to someone else. I don't think that men. I could be wrong. I think like you, we're just kind of guessing here, are generally not reliant or used to feeling dependent upon anyone else. And, we all make fun of when a man gets a cold. Oh boy, you're going to hear it because the joke is, the stereotype is that they're going to complain and whine and can't handle it. Like they would never be able to handle menstrual cramps. There's just no way. Not once they were told you're going to have this now for the rest of your life. They're just never going to be able to do it. I think that's part of it. I really do. Yes. I'd be curious to hear from Brian or Bo or any other man that might be on with us today, what your thoughts were. Did you experience this? What do you think it is about, coming out of anesthesia like that and being so emotional? I witnessed it with my father. I witnessed my husband didn't have anything cardiac. My father did. He had quadruple bypass. But, even my husband, after having hip surgery, was a little bit different types of emotions I saw coming right out of that, and having to be dependent. And there's different level. It's just like there's a little bit more irritability, a lack of patience. Whereas we, I think, are just a little, and we're also a little bit more in tune with our emotions in certain ways. So I'm curious to see what other people think. Jenny, what do you have, your perspective?
I'm nodding to everything you just said. I think a lot of it is men are, in addition to what Diane said, I think a lot of it is men are used to being the breadwinner, the caregiver, the strong one. And now they have to face a little bit of, well, maybe I have to lay back with that a little bit, and rely on somebody else to take care of me. So
a little bit of humble pie.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But in addition to that, Karen, just one more thing with what happened to Rick. He is not the same.
Mm-hmm.
He was very active and stuff, but I was explained from his doctors being that because he was gone for a few minutes and they had to bring him back and then was in the coma so long. He's has some memory loss from it, but Rick is not the same Rick like what you meant. He's still loving, he still loves you, Karen, very much and everything. But for me, he's very quieter and he gets tired. I've seen him literally, just very humble, like I'm so tired, and go to bed without even eating.
Mm-hmm.
Like he don't have the strength, but he's got some damage done from is due to the COVID and going into the cardiac arrest and again the anesthesia and stuff. But he's not the same Rick.
Yeah. Yeah. Josh, we have any comments yet coming in
Yes,
from
we
anyone?
do. Pamela
Right.
says, no one ever mentioned it to me. I expressed all of those feelings to my cardiologist. She's now getting help. And she says, oh goodness, I cry with those commercials.
How I'm wondering how, I think I remember reading this story online, but I'm wondering how far into recovery Pam is. So I'll wait for that answer because I think, obviously it's 8 years for me. I don't cry anymore at those commercials. It's a whole mess of different emotions. When you don't feel well, you're like, oh crap, am I going through this again? And I was just saying to everybody before we came online, the window of feeling good physically from head to toe is so tiny. There's such rare moments where I never have a moment where something doesn't hurt. Part of that's age, part of that's menopause, and part of that is just my body's just different now. But I definitely don't have the same emotional reactions like I did. But I mean, I remember, so my dissection was in 2015, and in 2012, I had to have back-to-back bowel resections because the first one had got an abscess, they had to cut me back open. And then with the second one, when I was recovering, I was outside on the phone with my mom and I was like looking down at the scar and they forgot to leave me a belly button. And I had the most beautiful innie belly button. Like if I knew I wasn't going to get punished by my father, I would have had a belly button ring, but he would have grabbed a wrench and ripped it right out. It was perfect. Don't have a belly button. And to me,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's like there's really nothing there, which is great because it's like one less thing you have to clean. But I looked at it emotionally after coming out of back-to-back 6 weeks, in between anesthesia, big surgery. Like that was my connection to my mom. You know what I mean? That was from your umbilical cord. And I got so sad and I cried so hard. And of course, it's funny. I look back now, but I know I was in the blues. Everything upset me. Commercials. Then I would get upset that I got upset. That was even worse, and barely stand up to make yourself a sandwich. And I'm like, God, I'm a sloth. I'm useless. And I'm so sorry, Pam, that nobody explained to you that this is normal, that going through this range of emotions is just part of everything. And it's you got to work out everything out of your system, and your brain's been through a shock. And it's what one person one time told me, that tears, it's like the way of the brain healing. It's releasing its own toxins and it comes out through the tears. So yeah.
It feels good to cry sometime. But I have two things to say real quick, and then I'll shut up. I promise, Karen. To Pam, I'm, so sorry, that happened. But this is why Aortic Hope is so important. They offer all this information. They have these support groups for survivors, for caregivers, for, those that are grieving. They have those support groups where you could ask the doctor. I mean, so that's why Aortic Hope is so awesome. It's growing and it's a world within itself. So you found a good place. Number two, Josh back there behind the screen, being a man, my question to you, I understand. I got you, Josh. You know I'm coming at you. Now, my question to you, Josh, okay, I understand you probably didn't have no open heart surgery, but being a man, my theory, is it possible that being a man without you having experienced a menstrual cycle, the hormones, and as much stuff that women go through, could it be why men feel like they have it harder?
Oh, I think you guys were hitting the nail on the head when you were hitting the provider, when you're hitting your levels of being able to provide for your family.
Yes. Yes.
That's going to be the thing that'll take a man. It'll take the legs right out of a man, right?
Right.
And if you don't, like, the next thing below that, like honestly, is children. Like, if you take away their children, you might as well be chopping them in half.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, like, obviously, women are going to be able to work through many more, kind of trials and tribulations through everything. But I mean, I'm not sure. I've heard some of you ladies say, I gave birth and then I had an aortic dissection, and I can honestly tell you this aortic dissection was way more painful than birth. And so, then you hear some guys like, I didn't feel anything. Right? And so
Right.
that's the gamut that we're working with. Pamela came back and said 4 years, 4 months, and she says she was better earlier. She also
Yeah.
says that upcoming surgery has her on a roller coaster. She's got an arch
Yeah.
replacement scheduled.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't we
it
have
would
a thing
put
for that?
anybody. Wait a minute. Care packages?
Yeah, Pamela, make sure you sign up for a care package.
Not only with us, but you can also go and pop over to Aortic Health Unlimited, and I'm sure Diane's got a little something up her sleeve for you too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially if you don't have blood pressure cuff. Is mostly what we specialize in, because believe it or not, there's people that can't afford a blood pressure cuff. And whether you have an aortic dissection or just a basic illness, your blood pressure could tell you many a things. I mean, the main thing is that it could tell you when something is wrong, and you could get to your doctor. So it don't matter if you have aortic dissection or not. That's the first thing they do when you go to the doctor is check your BP. So give me a holler if you need that. And that's especially what we specialize in. Just take care of yourselves.
Yep. Well, looks like the men that were with us, they gone a little silent.
Oh, sorry. No.
Oh.
What did happen was Ryan was he said he missed the question because he was going to pick up his daughter, and I said, did you find that you had the heart blues after your surgery? If so, how long did it last? And Ryan goes, it's complicated.
And
Yeah.
that would be the answer. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I think we all hit the nail on the head. I think
Right.
it's a level of vulnerability that men are not used to. And we look, we're women. We're born and we're trained that we are more vulnerable. So I think we learn
Right.
tools to deal with that. So interesting. I wrote that note. I'm going to look for an
Thank
article
you.
on that. Yes, I will.